let's take like a U12 AA team. Okay. So what would your thoughts be? When would you versus wouldn't you shorten the bench, or not at that for that type of team where we're far away from I'm 4 years old and everyone's just playing, and I'm also far away from it's 100% about winning. So what is your philosophy for like that kind of team? It's not AAA, it's still competitive, and they're still young, 12 years old or whatever.
Well, I mean, that's probably right in the middle, right?
Yeah, it's like
it's probably right in the middle. Then it's AA, it's not AAA, but even so.
And the reason I ask that is because that's probably the most common demographic where I get this question. Like the coach is benching kids at U11, 12, 13. Like that's the hardest part, I think.
Yeah, great question. So definitely not an answer because no, there's definitely not one perfect answer because there's different philosophies as well. So if a coach is all about development, whatever that means, and they roll lines, it's like that's what he does. If you have an ultra competitive coach, then he's going to want to win a little bit more. But somewhere in the middle, I think always makes sense, and I think it's appreciated by people if they're honest, right? If they're honest. So as a coach in youth levels at, like you say, the U12, you don't have 4 lines, you have 3. So there's a way, somehow, some way that everyone can play. It's not everyone gets 2.5 minutes every period or 3. It's not, that's what it is, but everyone gets to play a fairly balanced amount, right? True. How do you do that? There's different ways. So OHL and pro, typically they like even that, like the lines are kind of rolled for the most part until there's penalties and special, but they're kind of rolled and to a degree. So if you can roll your lines and be a competitive team and everyone kind of gets to play, that's ideal. But then a penalty comes. Okay, so a penalty comes and you're either on a power play or you're a penalty kill. So if you're on a power play, you could have the philosophy of the next line goes, which is fine. That way everyone gets equal. Or you can have, if you're a really competitive coach or it's about winning, you can have a power play unit that gets on for power plays. And that's what they get. But so after that, you still got probably 5, 6, 7 guys left over. So if those best players are also on your penalty kill, well, then you have guys that don't get to play, and there's a spot for everybody somehow, and that's through whether you're winning or developing. I think it's important that you develop and win and try to win at the same time. So if you have power play guys, then you probably should have you should work on those other guys to be at least penalty killers. Not at least. Penalty kill is huge, by the way. So, and it's still pride in it because like it's just because you're not scoring, you could be defending and you could put pride in that. So you can offset it with that, obviously. The next issue would be like, does it have to be fair? Like that's what I said earlier about like if you come to the game and you're a good player and it's just like you just expect to play, but you're not playing hard. You're not, and you're not following the system, and it's hurting other people. And I've said, Eric, I need like the forecheck is this, and you're not back checking, and da 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 da. Maybe it's a thing 4 or 5 times over a course of a game or 2 or whatever. It's like, you know what, Eric, like enough. Andy gets to go and take your spot. And you're not going to play for a shift or 2 because it's discipline, right? You're not listening. So I said this with some kids the other day. I was explaining a drill, and I said, like, it's kind of like 3 things if you don't get this right now, because we've gone through it a few times. One is you're dumb. And I go, you're not dumb. You're not dumb. So it's like, one, you just don't care. So that's a problem. So that has to be addressed. This can be addressed, right? Being dumb can kind of be addressed. I maybe have to change my coaching philosophy or style to maybe help you, or maybe you need more time. If you don't care, that's a big issue. Like then maybe that's where you have to learn is by missing a shift or something like that. And I forget what my third one is.
The third one was you're trying to piss me off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. You're doing it on purpose to piss me off.
Right.
And then that's another thing. So like, it can't be many other things than that, right? or I can't explain it well. But anyways, going back to the discipline thing, it's like at some point, sometimes guys need to, like, the best way to get in a player's not head, but how to get them to care is to take away a little bit of ice. So there are times where you have to.
And now you feel that's still appropriate. That philosophy is still appropriate for U11, 12, 13, double A.
Yes, because when my son or daughter, when we say pick up your dish,
Exactly. Yeah.
I can only say it so many times, man.
Yeah.
Pick up the dish, or do your room, or whatever. Coaching is parenting. Parenting is coaching. It's the same thing.
So just let me put a stamp on it. So if you don't have some of this, if your philosophy is just roll no matter what, then you are not teaching them in the moments that obvious teaching points can be taught. Right? So if it's just like you took 4 stupid penalties, but my philosophy is just roll lines.
Yeah,
well,
you don't put your dish away.
Yeah.
Oh well, what can I do?
Yeah. There's a missed opportunity for teaching, and as a coach, you're supposed to be teaching, right? So I think that at the end of the day is why the one side extreme of roll no matter what, in my opinion, is not an effective strategy, because now you're not doing the teaching part. You're not doing the teaching part in many of the moments that will present themselves when you could teach. Even if you say, well, I'm still teaching them the systems, I'm still teaching them what I want them to be doing, yada, yada. It's like, okay, well, if they don't follow it and you just keep letting them go, then you're not doing the teaching part, So I think that's where the line is drawn, even at that that U11, 12, 13. Now, where I'll say the coaches can be at fault, though, is when they don't communicate their philosophy up front. So I'll give an example, that mistake that I made on the weekend. We got into our first overtime situation. I was telling you about this before, and it's 3-on-3 in overtime. So again, this is U18 now, so it's a different level, but it's 3-on-3 overtime, and I only have 3 players. What's the philosophy during overtime on 3-on-3? So in case people didn't know this, it's possession. I need guys that aren't going to turn the puck over. I need guys that are going to manage the puck, and I need guys that are going to not make risky plays if they don't need to, because it's 3-on-3. So I'm picking my guys with that philosophy in mind. That's who I'm picking is going. I still want everyone to play. So in my head, I already know that if we play this full overtime, everyone will have gotten on the ice, because I still value that development piece where I want everyone to have been in the situation. We ended up scoring 2 minutes into the overtime. So only like 3 sets of players got to go. And I did have a couple guys go out more than once because they were going. So it wasn't like next guy up. So in my head, like, that's a pretty simple thing to understand. So I had a couple kids that didn't get on the ice in overtime. And so I had one kid come to me after the game, and he was like really upset that he didn't get on in overtime. And I'm talking to him, and I'm like, dude, like, relax. It was just nothing personal. I don't think you're no good. I like none of that. I was like, we only had 2 minutes. I had a couple guys to go. You made a couple mistakes earlier in the game that were fresh on my mind. So I picked someone else over you because at the time, that's what I was thinking. For right now, this guy was going more than you for what I thought. But it's not that you're never going to play in overtime or whatever. So I hadn't communicated to them, the whole team. This player coming and speaking to me pointed out the fact that I had not communicated my philosophy in overtime to these guys. So I went back in the room after. I already gave my post-game speech. I was on my way out. This kid came and asked to talk to me. I went back in to explain that to all of them. Like, this is how I'm going to coach overtime. This is how I'm going to pick who goes. This is how I'm going to be making decisions in those moments, because now it's like crunch time moments of the game where we can win the game. So we're more on the side of winning matters at this age for U18s, but I'm still heavily invested in the development aspect, and I need to make sure that the kids know that, even in a situation like overtime. So that was a mistake that I made as a coach on the weekend, where I just didn't even think twice about it. I'm like, yeah, they'll get it. They'll get why this is going on. And this is U18s. This isn't U12. And still, there's certainly more than just that one player that were like, why didn't I get to play? Or why did he pick this guy first instead of me? Or
you start off with 3, the 12 other ones are saying, you start off with 3, the 12 other guys go, why'd they pick him? That is what it is.
Exactly. And so to a certain degree, that will always be there. But as the coach, it's on me to make sure I'm communicating my philosophy about that. So if we scale it down or up or whatever to U12, 13 or beyond what I'm talking about, that piece of it, making sure your players know how and why you're making the decisions you're making, I think is super important. That transparency piece is super important because there's nothing worse. I remember being a player than not knowing what your coach is thinking. It can be very confusing and it can be very discouraging and it can be really frustrating, even if you're one of the better players that gets to play a lot, because I don't know why my coach is making these choices. And that can be really tough, even at a younger level when maybe you're not even old enough to be paying attention as much, you know? So I think that's a huge thing. No matter what you do at, even if it is U12 double A or whatever, you have to be able to explain to your players, and at that age, even more probably to the parents, why you're going to make the decisions that you're making. And that's up to you as the coach because it's your philosophy. You're the coach, you know? So, like you said, it's not a right or wrong answer, but that's something that I value as a coach, is making sure people know what my thought process is. So we're all on the same page
I
on what's
think it's
going on.
better,
Yeah, it's definitely
especially
better.
at the youth levels.
Yeah.